Hi everyone, Suzanne here. I hope you're all well and welcome to Sew Custom. Today I'm uploading two videos. The first, which should already be uploaded and I shall link below, is how I sewed up my flounced skirt, my mega flounced skirt. And the second, this one, is how I patterned it. So if you want to see how I patterned it, then let's get started. So starting with the flounce, I have a fresh sheet of paper here and I've just given myself a little cross. And from the centre point of that cross, I want to measure 9 inches. I've given myself a little bit of thread with a loop on the end that is a little bit longer than 9 inches. I'm going to pop the loop around the nib of my pen and then wrap the other end around a pin. And I'm going to wrap it around the pin until I get 9 inches in length of string. So that looks about 9 inches to me. So I'm just going to pop the pin in the center of that cross, hold it down with one hand, hold my pen perpendicular to the paper and draw myself a circle. And you'll see this first line, I wasn't holding my pen quite perpendicular, so you'll see my circle gets a little bit wider there. But I'm happy with this. So that's my outer circle complete. So now I need an inner circle. And for this, I'm using my pattern weight holder. I'm just measuring the diameter, just roughly, which is about 3.5 inches. And then I'm distributing that diameter on either side of that cross. So 1 3/4 inches on either side. That's going to give me rough marks that I can line up my pattern weight holder with, draw around, and then I'll have my inner circle. So that's that done. So I now need to add some seam allowance. So just where you see me indicate here, I'm going to measure from that line 1 centimetre on either side. I'm going to cut through that centre line so that I can join a lot of these flounces together. And then just to add seam allowance to the inner circle and the outer circle, which I've went ahead and done off camera. And the last thing to complete this pattern piece is to label. So this is my wrap skirt flounce, and I shall cut approximately 7 of these. So now onto my skirt. This is my skirt back, and I'm just tracing around my basic skirt block, making sure I'm adding in all of my markings. So I have my hip, the legs of my dart and the point of my dart. Now to draw in those dart legs. So I'm just joining that little dash that I left with the point of the dart, drawing in my hip line, and I'm going to use the hip line as a straight edge to straighten out my side seam, measuring from the hip 12 inches down. That's the length I want this piece of my skirt to be. And then using my side seam this time as my straight edge and drawing a straight line to the centre. And my skirt block already has seam allowance, so I'm just marking a little dash line at my corners so that I remember when I'm cutting out that I do already have seam allowance here, giving myself a 1 centimetre seam allowance at the hem, and then again just marking that seam allowance at the centre back. And now I just need to measure my waistline. I'm going to pattern a waistband for this skirt, so I need the measurements across the top waist. So I'm starting at that seam allowance and measuring in to that first dart leg. So that's about 4.5 inches. And then starting at the centre back and measuring into the other dart leg, which is about 3.5 inches. So I'll use those measurements later on. So just to cut out this pattern and label. So this is my wrap skirt back. I shall cut 1 on the fold. I have a little notch at the centre back at the waist. So that's my back done. Now on to the front. So I'm starting with a folded piece of paper. I'm laying my skirt block centre front matched up with that fold line. and just doing exactly the same as I did on the back, tracing around my basic skirt block front, making sure when I do that I'm marking in my dart legs, my hip line and the point of my dart. Now just marking in that seam allowance again at my corners, so at my side seam and at my centre front, marking in my dart legs, marking in my hip line, and then straightening off the side seam. So lining my ruler up with that hip line and drawing a straight line down towards the hem, measuring on that straight line 12 inches, same as the back, and drawing in my hem, giving myself a 1 centimetre hem allowance, and now just to cut out and open up my paper. So I've transferred my markings from one side to the other, and now I want to give myself that beautiful curve that will run along the front of this skirt. So I'm just lining up my hip curve with the centre, and by eye just checking to see where I want that curve to be and marking it in. The important part of this is to make sure that it crosses over the centre at the bottom and then curves nicely up to the side seam. So that's that complete. So now I just need to do the same as I did on the back and measure across the waistline at the top. So my first piece is 5 inches, my second 5 1/4 inches, and my third 5 inches. So now just to add seam allowance the whole way up that beautiful curve. So that's that done. And now I want to give myself a little notch just on the left hand side of this skirt. I want the flounce to run the whole way up on one side of the skirt and just to this point on the other side, just because I don't want too much bulk tucked in underneath the wrap. So my mark here is about 5 1/2 inches down from the waist. And now just labelling. So this is my wrap skirt front, and I shall cut 2. So the last pattern piece I need to complete is my waistband. So I've just jotted down all the measurements you see me take on the front and back skirt at the top of my paper here. I've given myself a straight line the whole way across my paper, and now I'm just measuring from one side to the other, those measurements. So from the centre back to the first dart, and then from the second leg of that dart to the side seam. And I'm writing all of this in just so that I don't get confused. So for my waistband, I wanted to have a back piece and 2 front pieces. So for the back piece, I'm just measuring above and below that centre line 2 inches, squaring off at each side and giving myself some seam allowance. So my back piece will be cut on the fold, just like my back skirt. And this is my waistband back. I shall cut one, as I said, on the fold. So now for the front, I'm doing exactly the same thing as I just did for the back. I'm taking those measurements you see me mark down earlier and just jotting them along that centre line. So I'm starting at the side seam, plotting in the measurement to the first dart, then the measurement in the centre, and then the measurement from the dart to the side seam again. Marking all of that in, and then giving myself a line above and below that centre line, 2 inches, squaring off at the sides, and giving myself some seam allowance, this time the whole way around. And labelling. So this is my waistband front, and I shall cut 2. And for notches on my waistband, I have notches on the centre line on both pieces. So that's my waistband complete, and indeed this entire pattern complete. So I've got my skirt front with that beautiful curve. I shall cut 2 of those. Got my skirt back, which I shall cut on the fold. Nice darts on both pieces. Got my waistband for the front and the back, and then the all-important flounce piece. And once that pattern is all sewn up, this is how it looks. And if you want to see how I sewed it up, I shall leave the video linked below. I love everything about this. I love the shape of the curve at the front. I love the volume of the flounce. I love the waistband. I've added some ties here. Love it.
So I really hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you found it useful. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, please do, and I shall see you guys in my next one. Until then, I hope you have a fantastic week. Bye folks!